my name is April Clark. I'm the executive director and co-founder of a nonprofit educational program called Reach and Teach. We provide the opportunity for students to gain real-world experience through authentic projects. We have one really super cool program that allows students to plan and promote a concert for their school campus. Now, obviously, during the pandemic, we can't do that right now, but the program that we're currently offering to schools all across the country is for students to plan, promote, and produce an entertainment broadcast. We have lots of virtual resources for teachers and students as well, so be sure and check out our website. I have included in the chat a worksheet that if you want to download that and use it to go along with the presentation with the workshop tonight, that'll kind of help guide your thoughts as you're thinking about how you want to promote your own classroom. This worksheet, this corresponding worksheet, will help you to develop a strategic plan for promoting your own classroom. So I'm going to share my screen. We'll go ahead and get started. The first thing that we want to talk about is there are four main elements to effectively promoting your classroom. The first step is you've got to set goals. The second step is you've got to analyze your target market. You've got to create some branding for your classroom. And then lastly, we will talk about strategies. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to start by setting some goals, what you want to accomplish for promoting your own classroom. So we're going to start with a question. Why? Why do you want to promote your classroom? That's a very important first step. Obviously, if you're here, you want to promote your classroom for some reason, but you've got to answer that question for yourself. Everyone's why is going to be different. So let's talk through some whys for promoting your own classroom. Ultimately, the overall goal should be to increase your classroom resources. Now, there's lots of different goals that can go within that. Maybe you want recognition for your students. Maybe you want recognition for yourself or for your school. That is totally fine. It's okay to want recognition for what you are doing in the classroom. Maybe publicizing your school, building a better reputation for your school so that you can ultimately increase enrollment or gain new students into your program. Maybe you want to build partnerships in the community. Maybe you have some different industry partners or manufacturing facilities or other businesses in your community that you would like to build partnerships with. Promoting your classroom is a great way to do that. And then, of course, maybe you want to increase funding. I don't know any teachers that couldn't use more funding for their classroom. So all three of these, there's definitely more reasons. So you've got to think about that for yourself. Why do you want to promote your classroom? So in answering that question, that's going to help build strategies to effectively promote your classroom. So you have to start with why. Again, the worksheet that is in the chat will help you work through each one of these steps. It'll help you take some guided notes so that you can ultimately create some really cool strategies for your classroom. All right, so let's talk about goals. Maybe your goals need to involve the community. You want to involve the community more in what your classroom is doing. Maybe you want to provide more opportunities for your students. And then again, maybe you want to increase funding. So what I have done is I've put together a few examples of goals, and we're going to break down each one of these goals. If you will think back to when you created or when you have taught students how to create goals, you may have used the SMART goal method. So in thinking about SMART goals, they need to be specific, They need to be measurable. They need to be attainable, relevant, and time bound. Now, that acronym can mean several different things, but ultimately, you want to create some very specific goals. So, first of all, let's look at this goal together. You want to raise $4,000 to purchase flexible seating by December 31st of 2021 by developing a mutually beneficial partnership with a local manufacturer. Okay, so you can see that the different elements of this goal are in different colors. It's specific because you have a specific overall goal. You want to raise money. That's what you specifically want to do. It's measurable because you have a dollar amount. You'll know if you achieve this goal if you reach $4,000. If you only reach $2,000, you're only halfway there, right? So it's measurable. It's time bound because you have a deadline of December 31st. And then it's also relevant because you're wanting to purchase flexible seating. But all of those things are included in this goal. And so that's really going to help you build some important goals for your classrooms. And I hope that this example can help you break down the goal that you need for your classroom. We've had a few more people to join us. So we're just talking about setting goals for promoting your classroom. There is a worksheet in the chat that will help you really kind of create strategies for promoting your classroom. And I noticed in the chat, someone said that they couldn't get it to download. What I can do is email this to you guys after the presentation as well too. So if you want to drop your email address into the chat, I can email that to you as well. Hopefully some of you will be able to download that worksheet and won't have any problems. Okay, so let's look at another goal. So another goal might be to provide a job pipeline for students by January 2022 by creating a solid reputation for our CTE program in the community. So this is another example of a goal that you can set that's going to help you build strategies and really put together a good plan for promoting your classroom. Again, it's specific. There's a specific end goal. You're wanting to build a job pipeline, and then there's a deadline on it. So January 2022, that keeps your goal time bound. And then it's also relevant because you're wanting to create that solid reputation for your CTE program in the community. So think about that. What goals do you want to accomplish through the promotion of your classroom? That's very important to think about. It's very important to develop that goal so that you can have that goal going forward, and that's going to essentially be the foundation of every single decision that you make when you are promoting your classroom. So goals are key, definitely key. Okay, so the next thing that we want to talk about is target market. Okay, so if you're not a marketing teacher, you may have never really heard of this definition before. If you don't work in marketing, it's not a typical definition that you use in your everyday language. But target market is essentially the audience that you are wanting to reach. Okay, so when we think about the target market for our classroom promotions, every single person may have a different target market. You might have more than one target market, and that's okay too. So let's talk through each one of these. Maybe your target market is parents and students. Maybe you're wanting to increase enrollment in your classroom, and you want to make sure that the parents in your community, the students at your school, know what a great and awesome program that you offer, all of the cool things that you do in your classroom so that you can get more students into your classroom, or maybe increase the enrollment at your school. That's a great marketing goal. That's a great promotional goal. And your target market might be specifically parents or students. Obviously, you're going to market differently or promote differently to parents as opposed to how you would promote to students. So determining who you are promoting to is key in developing effective strategies. Okay, so another target market that you might have is influential community leaders. A couple of reasons that you might want to target influential community leaders is maybe you're trying to build partnerships for your students or for projects that you're doing in your classroom. Maybe you're wanting to create more opportunities for students to get hired after they graduate or complete internships. Maybe the influential community leaders are people like your school board or your superintendent or your county commission or city council. All of those are very influential community leaders that you might want to target and tell about all the great and wonderful things that you're doing in your classroom. Who knows? That might turn into funding for your classroom. Maybe people that are grant makers in your community, maybe people who donate a lot of money to your school or to your classroom. That might be your target market. Of course, employers and business owners would also be a great target market. Going back to increasing opportunities for students to intern or get hired or have job shadowing opportunities, all of those things would fall within reaching employers or business owners. So think about who your target market is. Step number one, you've got to set a goal. What do you want to accomplish? And then step number two, who is your target market? Again, I said you can have more than one target market, but just know that your promotional strategies are going to be different based on who your target market is. You're going to want to reach students completely differently than the way that you would reach your city council or your mayor or your superintendent or whoever it might be that you are trying to reach. You want your strategies to be very specific to that group of people, to your target market. Okay, so now we might identify our target market. Now it is time to analyze your target market. It is so important for you to gather as much information as possible about your target market. You need to know their interest. You need to know their age. Why does age matter? Well, remember, it's different marketing to students than it is to the mayor, right? A lot of that is because of age. You might reach students through Snapchat or Instagram or TikTok, but you might reach the mayor through a handwritten thank you note or a press release or an in-person visit. So you've got to analyze their age. You've got to analyze their gender. Males and females are completely different, and the way that you market to them will be different as well too. You've got to analyze their needs. What are they looking for? If you're wanting to build a relationship or a partnership with someone in the community, what do they need and what can you provide them? So understanding the needs of your target market is key. Are they looking for new employees? Are they looking for recognition? Are they looking for goodwill opportunities or volunteer opportunities? What does their organization or them as an individual need? Analyze that. What are their behaviors? So in thinking about behaviors, I mean things like, how have they behaved in the past? Have they given money to organizations or schools or classrooms in the past? Have they partnered with teachers or students in the past? What are their past behaviors? That's going to be a very easy way for you to predict their future behaviors. And that's really key in your promotional strategies, understanding the behaviors of your target market. And then lastly, beliefs and values, how they think, how they feel about certain situations. That's going to be really important when you start developing those promotional strategies too. How people think, how they feel about a certain situation. Okay, so let's start with needs and interest. Okay, so we've already touched on a little bit about this, but when you're thinking about your target market, Are they looking for future employees? Maybe they're interested in future employees. Well, if they're a business, chances are they are looking for good quality workforce. That's hard to find these days. I know my husband, he is in charge of HR and hiring at a warehouse, and it is so difficult for him to find good employees that stay, have a great work ethic, that show up on time, do their job. That's really difficult for them. So for someone like my husband, they're very interested in future employees, meaning they're interested in what your students are doing, what your students are learning. Maybe their needs is positive press. Maybe you have a business or an organization in your community that has a really bad reputation. Maybe they need some positive press. Well, guess what? If you know of an organization or company that needs positive press, that is great news for you, because there's really not much better positive press than partnering with a school, than partnering with education. And you can utilize that to your benefit. When I was a teacher in the classroom, there was a dealership, a car dealership in our area that had a terrible reputation. Well, they had a new general manager come in, and he was really trying to rebrand the car dealership and create a better reputation and environment for their employees. So I found out about this. I thought, this is a great opportunity for my classroom. We can partner with them. We can build a mutually beneficial partnership to where my students provide something for them and they provide something for us. So a mutually beneficial partnership. So what we did is, I was teaching a marketing class at the time, and we partnered with that car dealership for my students to create a marketing campaign for them. It gave my students real world experience. It was an awesome project, and there was tons of local media attention. My students ended up on the front page, which essentially meant that that car dealership also ended up on the front page of the newspaper. So you can imagine what a media frenzy that was, to have a local car dealership partner with a local high school and provide educational opportunities for students. Ultimately, that partnership ended up in the dealership providing $800 for my classroom and paying every single one of my students $20 for their hard work and effort that went into the marketing campaign. So anytime that you can use opportunities just like that to build the reputation of your classroom, to promote your classroom, but also promote another business in the community, that is a win-win partnership. So look for opportunities like that. Think about what opportunities you have in your own community. Maybe your target market is looking for a good story. Maybe your school board is looking for a good story to share about their teachers. Maybe your superintendent needs a good, positive story to share during this crazy pandemic time, right? Everyone needs a good story during this crazy pandemic, right? Maybe your target market is looking for good education. So this would be maybe students or parents. They're looking for a new school system that's going to provide a good education. Maybe they're looking for better opportunities than what their current school already offers. Maybe your students is your target market and they're looking for a fun experience. So if you're trying to recruit students into your classroom or into your program or into your club or organization, maybe those students are looking for a fun experience. Understanding what their needs and their interests are is key in developing promotional strategies. So you're going to have a lot of different promotional strategies based on who your target market is, and understanding their needs and their interest is key. Okay, so let's talk about the next area you need to analyze with target market: behaviors. What do we mean by behaviors? Okay, so you've got to do some research. It's really important to research your target market because you want to know, in the past, what are some things that they have done? Have they awarded grant money before? Have they given private donations before? Have they worked with or partnered with young people? Maybe they've provided internships in the past or job shadowing opportunities. Maybe they've provided speakers for different classrooms or different conferences or functions. Maybe they've provided free resources like educational materials or equipment. What have they done in the past? Have they potentially hired former students of yours? Have they hired graduates of your school? Have they celebrated success? What I mean by that is maybe look at your local newspaper or local radio stations or local TV stations and see, have they celebrated different educational successes in the past? Have they written stories about classrooms or teachers? Have they interviewed teachers or students before? Have students visited their radio station and toured the facilities or been on the radio? What is their past behaviors? All of that is extremely important when analyzing your target market. Knowing all this information is going to help you build an extremely successful promotional strategy that's going to be effective for your classroom. Okay, so let's move on. We've talked about setting goals. We've talked about target market and how important that is. And now let's talk about branding. Branding is something that teachers really don't talk a whole lot about. Branding is extremely important to companies and to organizations and to corporations. Branding is also really important for celebrities and Instagram influencers. But we don't really talk about branding in the educational world very often, but we should. Okay. When you think about your classroom, you are the CEO of your classroom, and you should really think about what you want the brand of your classroom to be. Do you want it to be fun? Do you want it to be creative? Do you want it to be innovative? What do you want your classroom to tell the world about who you are, what your students accomplish, and what you do every day? When you think about branding, you have to think about overall consistency. Something that's really, really important when understanding branding is, let's take, for example, Chick-fil-A. If you look at Chick-fil-A, they have a set of values, they have a set of beliefs, they have a logo, they have a color scheme, and a font scheme, right? So if you see Chick-fil-A branding, all of their font is going to be in that script Chick-fil-A font, right? They're going to use the exact same colors in every single marketing, promotion, commercial, anything that they put out is going to have the specific Chick-fil-A colors, the specific Chick-fil-A font, and the same type message about their values, their beliefs, and what they stand for, right? So same thing for your classroom. You have to develop what is the brand of your classroom, all the way down to a logo, colors, font, everything. Okay, so choose that for your classroom. Maybe you need help with that. Maybe getting a graphic design artist to help you create a brand is a great place to start. Maybe you have a graphic design class at your school. Get your students or the graphic design students to create a brand for your classroom. Okay, so consistency is key. You want everything to be consistent. When we talk about color scheme, please understand that red is not just red, right? There's a color code for a specific shade of red. So be specific when you're choosing the colors you want to use. Maybe you use your school colors. Maybe you don't. That's completely up to you and how you decide to brand your classroom. So let's think about professionalism. When you're creating the brand for your classroom, you obviously want it to be professional. Now, that doesn't mean it can't be fun. That doesn't mean it can't be creative or innovative, but we do want to keep it professional. So think about what you want the overall look, the overall vibe to be for your brand. And then lastly, let's talk about tangible items. So tangible items are things we can touch, feel, be a part of, right? So branding, including tangible items in your brand for your classroom, is pretty fun, but it's also important in your marketing efforts. So what do I mean by tangible items? I mean things like business cards or t-shirts or thank you notes. All of those could be considered part of your tangible items. So let's think about, oh, we've already talked about logos, colors, font, and then tangible items, thank you notes, business cards, promotional items. Maybe you have sticky notes that you distribute when you go and meet, you know, a new industry professional or a community leader. Definitely, I would highly recommend every single teacher should have a business card. I bet 9 times out of 10, teachers don't have business cards. I may be wrong about that statistic, but it's just not something that teachers typically think about. Sometimes in career tech, teachers will have business cards, but every single teacher should have their own branding and their own business cards, because networking is really important for teachers. Meeting new people and building effective partnerships with people is important. And the best way to do that is to have business cards, a way that people can connect with you or follow up with you. So definitely a business card. I would highly recommend at minimum a business card and a thank you note for your classroom. Because anytime you have a guest speaker come to your classroom, writing a handwritten thank you note on a business card that is specific to your classroom is definitely a great way to make a first impression. And it's all about leaving a good impression on the people that you meet. Maybe you have someone that sends a donation to your classroom or supports one of your students, or gives a recommendation letter to your students. All of those would be reasons to follow up with a thank you note. Yes, an email is definitely sufficient. It's something that you should do, but following up with an actual handwritten thank you note will go a long way. And having that branded to your classroom is definitely a great way to make a great first impression. So think about that. At least, at bare minimum, a thank you note and a business card for your classroom. But think about some other promotional items that you have. We already mentioned sticky notes, maybe t-shirts for your students or for yourself, maybe cups or mugs, some type of gift that you could provide, you know, the guest speakers or the people that are partners with your classroom. What are some other promotional type items that you could include? Maybe talk to your students about this. Get creative. Keychains, cell phone covers, pop sockets, whatever it might be. Think about what is going to make sense for your target market. And so remember, your target market, it might be different. So for students, a pop socket for their cell phone might be a great promotional item, whereas opposed to a thank you note for the mayor, just sending a thank you note might be sufficient. Or, you know, a really cool tumbler with your classroom logo on it for the mayor. That might be something cool to do too. So get creative. Think about that, how you can brand your classroom. Okay, so now let's get into strategies. What are some effective strategies that you can use to truly promote your classroom? Number one, social media. That is easy. It is free. It is a great way to promote your classroom. Partnerships with industry professionals, partnerships with the community, being engaged and involved in the community, whether it be through monthly meetings or being involved in civic organizations. And then lastly, of course, tell absolutely everyone that will listen. So we're going to break down each one of these and talk about them specifically. Hopefully it'll spark some ideas and you will be able to walk away with some truly great promotional strategies that you can use to promote your classroom. Okay, so first, let's talk about social media. I would highly recommend using multiple platforms. Okay, so definitely Facebook, Instagram. Think about what makes sense for your target market. Again, if you are trying to reach students, maybe TikTok, maybe Snapchat. If you're trying to reach the city council or your superintendent or your school board or local businesses, it would make more sense to do Facebook or Instagram. So that's why you have to analyze your target market and decide what is going to be the best route. Okay, so now that you've established multiple platforms, where's going to be the best way to promote your classroom? Think about how you can utilize social media. Okay, so one example would be live streams. Now, I know that not everyone is super comfortable with being on camera or talking on camera. I'm not saying that you specifically have to do the live stream. Maybe you live stream a portion of your class or a part of a project that your students are working on. Now, I definitely understand that there's some privacy issues that might arise. You want to make sure that any students you take pictures of or do videos or live streams of, it's perfectly okay with their parents. Maybe they have to complete a media release form. Chances are your school probably requires your students to use media release forms anyways. So you definitely want to check on the privacy before you put any students' faces on social media. So just a disclaimer right there. So with live streams, when you are recording or using a live stream to, stream a project or something that students are working on, I know that can be kind of scary. Anytime we put students in front of a live camera that goes out into the entire world, that can be incredibly nerve-wracking, right? We don't know what they're going to say or what they're going to do, but there are ways that you can safely do this. Number one, obviously use students that you can trust. We all have those students that we can rely on, that are dependable, students that you can absolutely 100% trust to not do anything inappropriate. But think about how you can use live streams. So let me give you a couple of examples. When I was teaching marketing in my class, we would practice doing press conferences. That was part of the public relations section. And so I would have students develop a script for a press conference that they would use about a specific situation. Maybe it was, a scenario where a celebrity got in trouble or a company was in the news for something negative. And so students would have to develop a press conference based on whatever scenario that they used. Well, when it was time to do presser conferences, we would live stream those and people would get to participate and watch live in those classroom activities. I would always tag our target market, tag our superintendent, tag our school board, influential people in the community that I wanted to see what was happening in our classroom. I would tag them in social media on those live streams. Other ways that you could use live streams is if maybe you have an event coming up, maybe your FBLA or DECA club is about to compete in a competition. Interview students, do a Q&A with your students about what they're presenting, what they're competing in. Your community, your target market would love to hear about the awesome things that your students are doing. Maybe you have seniors in your class and you want to interview them about what their plans are for after high school. Maybe you do a student spotlight where you live stream an interview or a spotlight video about the seniors in your class and what their next steps are. Those are all ideas for live streams. And then of course, daily post. You might do Tech Tuesdays where you highlight different technology that you use on your classroom on Tuesdays. Or maybe you have a student spotlight Saturday where you post a picture of a specific student that's in your class and brag on all the awesome things that they've accomplished while in your classroom. One of the things that I always did in my classroom, this is actually a screenshot from my Instagram, which is now my personal Instagram, but it used to be my classroom Instagram. So every single Friday, we would do Soft Skills Friday. This is where students would work on a different soft skill or employability skill. It might be a listening activity or a teamwork problem solving activity, whatever it was. Every single Friday, we would work on it. We would work specifically on these essential life skills. And so I would highlight that every single Friday to where the community knew that I wasn't just teaching marketing. I was also teaching these students how to be actual human beings and productive citizens. And that's something that employers get excited about because content knowledge is not everything. Content knowledge is super important, but so is those employability skills. So think about how you can let the community know what you're working on in the classroom. Come up with creative, catchy titles for each day, whether it be Marketing Monday or Tech Tuesday or Throwback Thursday or whatever it is. Come up with some catchy titles that you can do daily posts about your classroom. Okay, so use hashtags. Hashtags are very important for social media marketing. I created a personal hashtag that I use for my classroom. It was simple, Clark's class. And all of my students knew that this was the hashtag. So if they took pictures of the project that they were working on, they could hashtag Clark's class and people could follow that hashtag. I could see what students were sharing with that hashtag and then reshare it to our classroom accounts as well. So come up with a catchy hashtag for your class. Use it on flyers, use it on social media, use it throughout your school so that everyone knows that's Miss Clark's hashtag for her classroom. Other teachers can see what you're working on too. So it's a great way to promote your class. And then I've already mentioned this, but tag your target market. Tag your target market. Tag your superintendent, tag parents, tag students, tag your mayor, your city council, your grant makers, your business owners, all of the people that you want to know what you're doing in your classroom, tag them on your social media post. Okay, so now let's talk about partnerships. I mentioned before, partnerships need to be mutually beneficial. Remember, I talked about the car dealership. That's the type of mutually beneficial projects I'm talking about. But other partnerships you need to include is you have got to get to know your local journalist. Get to know the people that write the newspaper articles. Get to know the people that do the TV interviews, that are your local journalists that cover the hurricanes or the tornadoes or, the local pet food drive. Get to know your journalist. Get to know your radio DJs, your morning talk show host at your local radio stations. Get to know these people. Build relationships with them. Make sure that they know who you are. I can look through my cell phone right now and I have at least 6 different journalists' personal cell phone numbers in my phone. Now, that wasn't super easy. It's not like I said, hey, will you give me your personal phone number? No, I had to build partnerships and relationships with them. In fact, one of our local newspaper journalists is a great friend of mine now. I met her when I was teaching in the classroom. And the way that we built our relationship is she knew that every time I emailed her, I had a great idea for a story. She would come out, she would do a story on my students. And that's how we built our partnership. Now, think about ways that you can build your partnerships with your local journalist. Where do journalists like to hang out? where the news is happening, right? Journalists always attend city council meetings. They always attend county commission meetings because that's where they get information about what is happening in the community. So make a point to attend those meetings. Chances are there's a journalist that attends every single one of your school board meetings. Show up one month, introduce yourself, and let them know who you are. It's as simple as that. Build those relationships. I promise they are key. Now, here's the important part. When you contact your journalist, maybe you have a great story idea about some students in your class or a project that you're working on. When you contact them, don't just contact them to tell them about the projects in your class. Anytime you hear of a great story idea, let them know, because they don't want to just know about your class. They want to know about other classes at your school or other students that are doing great things at your school, or maybe your neighbor who did something exciting. Anytime you contact them, you want to make sure whatever your story idea is something that they want to write about. So make sure it's really good. You've got to learn how to pitch those ideas too. Pitching the ideas for the story ideas is probably the most important aspect. Coming up with a good headline, learning how to write a story or a press release will be extremely beneficial to you when contacting your local journalist. So build those partnerships. Next, let's talk about community. You want to be involved in your community. So attend monthly meetings or have students attend monthly meetings. Get on the agenda and have your students present a presentation about the cool projects that you're working on in your classroom. I guarantee if you contact any one of these civic clubs or councils or chambers or commissions, if you contact them and say, hey, I would really like for 2 of my students to get on your agenda for the month of January so that they can tell your members about this really cool thing that they did in my classroom, or about this really cool partnership or project that students did in my classroom. I guarantee you they will say yes. They want to hear about what is happening in education. So contact them, simply ask to be put on the agenda. Maybe have your students present, maybe you present. It doesn't matter, but make sure that you're on the agenda and you're being able to talk to these highly influential people in your community. Attend networking events. Every single community has different networking events. It might be through your local chamber of commerce, but seek out those events. A lot of times as teachers, we don't think about networking as important. When you go to conferences, you meet other teachers, right? Well, if you don't, you should. But you also want to meet the people in your community. You want the influential people in your community to know who you are. It's really important for teachers, and it's not something that teachers typically do. So you be the difference. You be the one that stands out because you're the one that attends the networking events, that gets to know the community, and the community knows you. In return, your community will know your classroom and your students. Okay, so the last thing that I want to talk about is tell everyone. How do you tell everyone? Through press releases. Remember, I mentioned it is incredibly important for you to learn how to write an effective press release. There's all kinds of tutorials, templates, YouTube videos, articles about how to write an effective press release. Just Google it. You will be able to find tons of information. Text message. Anytime you have something cool going on in your classroom, send a text message. Invite people to come into your classroom. Invite the local employer to come and see what your students are working on. Send emails. Email your superintendent on a regular basis and let them know what you're working on. Let your school board know. Even if they don't come, when you invite them, continue to invite them to come to your classroom. It is so important to have people see what you are actually doing in your classroom. So text messages, emails, phone calls, any way that you can tell people, definitely do it. And find a reason to regularly connect with those people. Find a reason so that they continuously remember you, so that you are always at the top of their mind when thinking about opportunities that come up. Make sure that you're the first person that they want to contact and tell about the opportunity that comes up. Make sure that you're at the top of their mind always. And the best way to do that is find a reason to regularly connect with them, whether it be a visit, a Christmas card, a note, an email, whatever it is. On that note, be innovative. I just mentioned Christmas cards. You send Christmas cards about your family, to update your community, to update your friends about what happened this year. Why do you not send a classroom Christmas card? That's a great way to publicize the awesome things that you did this semester. Send a Christmas card, or an end of the year card to update all of your stakeholders, to update all of your target market about the awesome, cool, exciting things that you did in your classroom this year. Okay, so that is all that I have for you today, but I hope that you guys will join us every month for a new Professional DevelopMentors workshop. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. This is my contact information, so please do not hesitate to reach out to me via email or through our website. We absolutely love to help teachers, so please let us help you any way that we can. If you were unable to download the corresponding worksheet through the chat, drop your email into the chat and I will get that sent over to you so that you can start building your own promotional strategies for your classroom. Okay, so now I want to open it up to questions. If you have a question, you can drop that into the chat. You can unmute yourself and ask questions. That is totally fine as well. I've definitely enjoyed being with you guys today, and I hope that you even got a small nugget of information that you can take with you as you go throughout this year and decide to promote your classrooms. If you guys have questions, you can just let me know. You can drop them into the chat or you can unmute yourself. I can also share this presentation with you guys. So if you would like a copy of the slides for me to share with you, you can drop your email address into the chat and I will also share them there as well. Okay, so we have a great question. Would you brand each prep or just the program? That's a great question. So personally, I would brand the program. You could brand the program as a whole and then promote each prep underneath that program as a whole. But yeah, definitely think about, let's say, for example, you're a business education teacher, or maybe you're a marketing teacher, and you would want to create that program, that business education program, as if it were a company or as if it were an organization. Come up with a cool logo, come up with, the colors that you want to use, and use that consistency in every single marketing element that you put out. When you send a press release, make sure you have a letterhead that goes along with your brand. So yeah, I would definitely focus on branding as a program, but you could definitely promote your preps on an individual basis underneath that brand. Very cool. So you're the only CTE teacher at your building. That gives you a huge opportunity to definitely brand your CTE program and get a lot of attention for your students and build those partnerships with the people in your community. That's exciting. Any other questions before we go tonight? Also, one thing I did forget to mention, I'll be sure and send that out to everyone that attended. You guys will receive a certificate of completion. It is good for 1 hour of professional development with the Reach and Teach Professional Development Tours program. So if you have to use that to continue your teaching certificate, it's definitely good for one professional development hour. So thank you so much for joining us. And I look forward to next month. I hope you'll join us then as well, too. Have a good evening.